And so we, at least I can get a hold of a copy of this video so I can post it on my YouTube channels. So Amit was very thoughtful on choosing the title of the presentation, and he told me maybe we can title the presentation "The World of Autonomous Vehicles." It's a very interesting title, which indicates that the autonomous vehicles has their own world, and which is, to a certain extent, it is true. You don't see an autonomous vehicle in the streets every day, but it's a highly growing industry with many players trying to reach level 5 autonomy. What's the level 5 autonomy? A level 5 autonomy is the ability to drive, is the ability of your vehicle to drive autonomously in different domain or operational domains. This means it can drive in a extreme weather condition, such as a windy weather or a snowy weather, or any kind of terrain. So the presentation, I will start the presentation will have the following parts. So basically, I will start with an introduction. Then I will be talking about some of the main content of our course on LabDocs and Udemy. The course is not yet on LabDocs, but it soon will be on LabDocs, and hopefully we can have students that are interested to join the world of autonomous vehicles and to start a career on autonomous vehicles and to help the world reaching a level 5 autonomy. The dream of level 5 autonomy means that elderly people can drive their vehicles, even kids can use cars, and it's about the utilization of cars as well, because 80% of the time cars are parked. So this means that we'll even have the ability to share our vehicles among each other. Third, I will be talking about the opportunities on autonomous vehicles. I will talk about concepts that are related to autonomous vehicles and how we can think about them. Then I'll talk about the ecosystem of autonomous vehicles, and this is where we talk about different players involved in autonomous vehicles, from automakers to stacks makers like hardware, like NVIDIA, and to automakers like Tesla, even to software developers and to startups that are working in the field of autonomous vehicles. I'll talk about opportunities and innovation using AV technology. Then we'll talk about how you can start a career in the world of autonomous vehicles and how you can be an entrepreneur in the world of autonomous vehicles. Recently, Zoox was acquired by Amazon for $1.3 billion. Zoox was a company that was founded in the mid of 2015 or in the mid of the last decade, and it's managed to reach a valuation of $1.3 billion and to be sold to Amazon. Then I will be concluding. So about me, and this can be a good slide for all of us to have a brief background about myself. So Amit has mentioned more about my professional experience. He talked about the company that I have founded in Dubai, Emergence SET, and the old management that I have done for Emerge German Building Materials. But this is not what I'm doing at the moment. At the moment, I'm running 2 Tech Seeds incubator, ferasnasser.com and Leader #1. And these Tech Seeds incubators are aiming to provide a visibility of ideas for young people from around the world. So I have a BSc in Civil Engineering from the University of Jordan, MSc in Railway Systems Engineering from the University of Birmingham. I was one of the early builders of drones in the Middle East. That was around 2014. There was a very famous competition in Dubai called Drones for Good Award. And the Drones for Good Award was a famous competition to bring people together to develop drones for civil applications, and I was one of the early participants. We have built the drones that have some autonomous capability that is dependent on the GPS in its mission planning. So we have designed that drone, and we participated in this competition, and you can see one of the videos about our drone in our YouTube channel. I have an online degree from the University of Toronto in autonomous vehicles, and this is one of the benefits of online education and online learning. So the University of Toronto is offering a famous course on autonomous vehicles, but it's a very tough course really, on Coursera. And if you attend our course, we'll provide you with full support for passing this course and to try to develop your skills in the area of software development in the world of autonomous vehicles. I have floated the idea of autonomous guided bus application. So this is also one of the key areas that can help in the world of that can help advance the knowledge of in autonomous vehicles. So basically you learn about a concept that is associated with cars, and you can take it to different fields. So there is a transport system that exists in so many cities called the guided bus, and autonomous vehicles can help those guided buses reduce the cost of the infrastructure, because they can be following a line or following some signs on the infrastructure along the track rather than you build the infrastructure, and it can help them managing the speed and avoiding collisions. So taking one idea from the world of autonomous vehicles and extend it to the autonomous, for example, guided buses, one of the early benefits, and we have floated the idea of an autonomous guided bus application. I think this can be a very interesting opportunity for many players in the world of autonomous vehicles, or coming players in the world of autonomous vehicles world. The first and best seller for railway course on Udemy. So on Udemy, I have a famous course, and this is associated with my previous studies, railways, and this course is a bestseller. So if you are interested in railways, you can also join my course on the railway part. In Arabic, because around 400 million people speaks Arabic, and this is a language for many countries such as Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, and Iraq, Sudan, Syria, and many other countries. So I have put the course in Arabic as well, the course that you can attend in English. So this is also one of the key contributions that I have done. So PhD and personal choices, and 10 years plus in creative innovation, innovative prototypes in the rail sector and others. So I have been working trying to bring prototypes to the market for a very long time. And these prototypes are in so many areas. They are in the area of infrastructure inspection, where you can see the side of the photo. Here you can see me holding a handheld device trying to inspect the infrastructure. So a few photos about me. This is me inside the Istanbul metro, and this is me where we are building our drone, and me holding the handheld device that I have developed a prototype for infrastructure inspection. So this is the course, autonomous cars, drones, and electric mobility. It's we have a Cerebrize for you. There is a Cobone that you can use today. It's called, you can use it under Cars Passion. We provide you with a discount. Also, we'll have this course on lab docs. So soon you'll be able to attend the course in lab docs, and maybe lab docs will find its way in providing niche courses that are targeted on maybe the fourth industrial revolution or new emerging technologies. So the course will be on Udemy and lab docs. You can use the Cobone today, Cars-Passion, and you can join our Udemy course if you want to learn about drones, autonomous cars, and electric mobility. So we have put the three subjects together because we think the technology can be transcended from one domain to another, and this brings a great advantage and a great benefit. So our course content, what do we teach? And a lot of people are thinking, what do we teach? What can you do if you attend this course? And what are the beneficial things that will help you? So electric vehicles, we talk about policy. What are the policies that are associated with electric vehicles? And this is important, for example, people working with the government. We talk about principles, the components of the powertrain, and how the infrastructure is organized. We talked about the components and business models. So the part of electric vehicles, we talk about policy, principles, components, and business models. Drones, we also talk about the principles of drones. We talk about the components, how you can build your own DIY drone. And I talk about my experience in building this drone. And we talk about drone software, which is an area that is growing a lot, software and simulation. And many people will find it interesting. For example, Zurich is known for their drone startups, and it's a place for many opportunities in the world of drone software. And you might find young people who are really interested and engaged in joining the drone industry. Finally, about autonomous cars, we talk about policy, we talked about principles, components, software, and simulation. And software and simulation is a growing area in the field of autonomous vehicles to try to provide cars with safe operation and level 5 autonomy. So this is the course content. This is what we are teaching. Go to Udemy, use your Cobon Cars Passion, and join the course. This is something that you might like doing, and you might like to know more about the course. It's a great value for money, and please leave a positive review, because these reviews affect our ranking on the course. And if you are on LabDocs, soon you will be having the course on LabDocs. So what are the opportunities in the world of autonomous vehicles? Just let me ask one question, because before we start, because here we'll be talking a lot about opportunities and the growth in the autonomous vehicles market around many concepts with autonomous vehicles. Is the presentation visible? Can someone just comment if the presentation is visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so the presentation is visible. So we expect there are 5 levels of autonomy in the world: level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Level 3 is what you see in Tesla at the moment. And level 4 is where you will have minimum engagement from the driver only in emergency situation. And level 5, where you have your car driving in different operational design domains. So we expect the market to reach $650 billion by around 2050, and by 2030 it will be $122 billion. Many companies will be competing for this market. So you can see the growth on in terms of the levels of autonomy. Level 3 will get the most of the share. Then by the arrival of the year 2025, you can see some sales happening for level 4 and level 5 technology. So level 3 was technologies such as associated with computer vision, technologies associated with motion planning, technologies that are associated with connected vehicles. You would see this market growing from the year 2025 onwards. So if you build a career, and young people like to think about this. If you build a career, maybe this area of autonomous vehicles and autonomous vehicles technology can provide you, let me say, an early step. You can take an early step in the leap of the world of autonomous vehicles. It's like the early days of the internet. The people who had the knowledge, the people who had the understanding of the technology have managed to capture the world, to capture the opportunity in the worlds of the internet. The same thing, we are on the verge of potential revolution in autonomous vehicles technology, and this you can capture this early opportunity from the early days. So that's about sales and market. So who is involved in autonomous vehicles? A lot, many technologies from all around the world. So Zoox, I mentioned the example of Zoox. This is the company that was sold to Amazon and for $1.3 billion. So if one of the guys who would relocate to San Francisco or thinking about joining the world of startups and autonomous vehicles, Zoox is one of the early successes in this world. And I mentioned the internet example, so you can see that the potential of growth is huge. Many research centers also involved in autonomous vehicles, Oxford Robotics Institute, the Autonomous Systems Lab in ETH Zurich, and many others. Cruise, big automakers, for example, GM have their Cruise project, and Google has Waymo, so maybe you would be joining these companies as well. The thing is, this course will provide you with the basic understanding and the basic knowledge that you need to enter this market. So the levels of autonomy. So you have 5 levels of autonomy. You have no automation, that is level 0. Then you have driver assistance, and you can see this in the cruise control, for example. You put the cruise control of your car at a certain speed, and you keep it following this speed. There is partial automation level 2, like driver assistant support system. Then we can come to level 3, conditional automation, where you can leave your car driving in the highway. And you can see this with Tesla, but also it's not. Sometimes there are some areas that the driver has to engage. Level 4, the driver engagement will be in emergency situation, and in level 5, the driver can just leave the driving to the car, and he can enjoy the ride, and he will have minimal interaction, and the car can drive in different environment design domains. And by what do you mean by operational design domains, or ODD? We means that the car can drive in different environmental conditions, in different terrains. So for example, it can go on an unpaved road. It can, for example, deal with snowy weather, and it can deal with difficult fog at night. So this is just an example of the levels of autonomy and the difference between level 0 and level 5. Now, the big automakers are between level 3 and 4, and this is what they are producing, as well as the regulation. We have seen the recent regulation that is coming from the Bundestag, and that is in Germany, which allowed level 4 autonomy for the vehicles, but the driver should be able to intervene in certain areas in the country. So the autonomy requirements, and by that we mean, what are the requirements for autonomy? To be able to run a reliable autonomous vehicle, the vehicle should be able to do planning, it should be able to do perception, and it should understand the operational environment design, and it should be doing object and event detection and response. So the vehicle should be able to detect events that happens on the road and respond to them effectively. Perception, the vehicle will be able to do objects identification and ego localization, making sure that the vehicle knows where itself. When we talk about ego, we mean by the car itself. It should be able to always localize itself and answer the question, where I am now. And this is a famous problem in autonomous vehicles, which is called localization, where vehicles have to always to say where is their location. Planning, it should be able to do reactive planning, responding to different elements on the road, and predictive planning, and predict where the other vehicles are going to be while they are driving. This will lead to driving decisions and actions, and those driving decisions and actions will be the will describe how we will describe and detail the driving of the car. So those decisions, turn left, turn right, stop here, accelerate or decelerate, will be the output of these autonomy requirements, which is the planning stack, perception stack, and the object and event detection and response. This is just to tell you what do you need to be autonomous. What does autonomy mean and how you can achieve these requirements. So planning, you can see the car on the left-hand side. It's trying to plan its way and make a takeover from the truck. So it will take left, then go back to the right lane and take right. This is a maneuver that is based on, for example, the speed of the truck in front. So the radar have detected the truck, and based on the mission planning, the stack, there was a decision to take over this car. Then there was another car in front of the vehicle, which is the small car, the small gray car. Then the vehicle decided to return to the right lane. That's a simple interaction that can happen on the road, and your vehicle should be able to plan its way. Perception, you can see the objects detection is on, and you can see that the car is able to identify this is a car, this is a person, and to identify elements from the road. So, what are the components of an autonomous vehicle? There are hardware components, there are software components, and there is the brain, which control the hardware and the software. So for the sensors that are involved in electric vehicles, and they are different between different manufacturers. So recently I have heard that Tesla is shipping its cars even without radar, and they are just depending on their cameras. And but if you look at, for example, at Waymo or the cars that are aiming for level 5 autonomy, you can see that they are still using LiDARs, while Tesla is not using a LiDAR. So different arrangement for the sensors, but typically you would find a radar to detect long range vehicles on the long range, cameras, GPS antenna, GPS receiver, IMU, and you would have a computer, which is basically to analyze all the information that is coming from the road, and to advise the software stack, which is to plan the mission and to plan the car journey. This is some of the autonomous vehicles components, and you can see here where we talk about autonomous vehicle computer or hardware. This is NVIDIA Drive BX2, and this is you will connect all the sensors and as well as software to this hardware. And NVIDIA you can experiment with software with autonomous vehicles cars on your computer, but this hardware is designed for autonomous vehicles, and this is basically the brain of the autonomous cars. So let's look at the software stack. The software stack takes all the sensors output, the LiDAR, the radar, the cameras, the IMU, and it makes environment mapping, environment perception, then motion planning, and then it drives the controller, which do the actuation, the throttle and braking. So this is based on and there will be a system supervisor that monitoring the different components of the software as well as the hardware to make sure that no collision happens and a safe operation is being run. So I have numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the environment perception, we talked about visual perception, the motion planning. I think I would just want to comment on the environment mapping. Some vehicles will depend on online maps or high definition maps. And so, for example, companies like Here Maps or Google provide these maps, and they can plan their way based on these maps, especially on the long planning stage where you plan that you'll go from point A to point B. So environment mapping is important. It is important that your country have at least an updated map for the roads and the infrastructure for autonomous vehicles to run safely. How we can do mapping? We can do this with specialized cars. So this is Here Maps, and you can see they are doing this detailed mapping, and you can see the occupancy grid at the other vehicle. You can see the gray occupancy grid and where the vehicles locating the static objects, and this is using LiDAR data. So the occupancy grid is generated using LiDAR data, and the high definition map, you can see it on the Here cars. It's not only autonomous vehicles components that provides an opportunity for the future, but actually connected vehicles and AV technology also provide an opportunity for the future. And I mentioned the guided bus briefly. I will talk about this in details later on, but here you can see the concept of platooning. And the concept of platooning can impact trucking, which basically you would have a leading truck and many trucks are following this truck based on connected vehicles technology. So the lead vehicles is linked to the platoon via wireless communication, and they are coupled or somehow lightly coupled with each other to try to drive themselves to the final destination. And the platooning is a concept that can impact trucking and impact the way we run our logistics. Connected vehicles is another way for looking at the benefits of autonomous vehicles. And with that, we mean that you can connect different cars on the road. Maybe you would have a social network of cars. Maybe you would be able to have social interactions because the cars are connected to each other. This is what we might be seeing in the future with the development of with the development of our telecommunication networks and 5G and more. So AV, yes. So can we take a break for a bull? I think we can take a break for a bull. Yes, Amit.
Sure. Thank you, Feras. Here it goes.
Let us see what the bull is about.
So guys, this is a quick code. So for a bull, it has 2 questions. So, if you have any familiarity about the autonomous vehicles, and if you can mention about your profession, it will be great. It's very interesting to know, Feras, that the connected vehicles are also coming under.
Yes, Amit, it's this is the benefit that this is one of the key advantages of learning about a new technology, that autonomous vehicles might result in connected vehicles technology and might impact other industries as well. So think about taxis, think about how we run parked cars, and many other technologies can be many other industries can be impacted with autonomous vehicles. It's the same concepts, the same principles, and you can just take it from one industry to another. So I'm getting the results of the bull. We have 8 participants out of 21. So please, if you did not fill the poll, please do so. And please, if you have question, just ask the question, and we can reply to you, or either directly or by the end of the session. So we got 8 answers. Are you familiar with autonomous vehicles? We had 1 person familiar, and somehow familiar, 75%. Please state your profession. We have 4 engineering or science students and 4 professionals. So we have a good mix from the industry as well as academia, and also we have people who are familiar. So this actually is the way for explaining the concepts for you. Okay. What are the majority used? So there is a question, and we will end the poll here. We have 9 answers. I will end the poll in a minute. What are the majorly used commercial software for autonomous vehicles? Every company has its own software. So Tesla has its own software. There are other companies that is providing software for autonomous vehicles. I don't know if there is one major software, but like, for example, Microsoft, you can say Microsoft is used for autonomous vehicles. I'm not familiar with a specific software, but many automakers rely on computer vision, and for example, for analyzing LiDAR data, you might be using a Python library. So in the Audacity course, they are teaching on C++. So I don't know if there is one software for autonomous vehicles as people writing their own software. So the second question, is it necessary to have any program exposure for learning autonomous vehicles domain? This is about the ecosystem. I will answer this in the ecosystem. It depends on where you will fit. If you are a regulator, if you are, for example, working for the government and you need to regulate autonomous vehicles, I'm not sure if programming knowledge is what you really need as much as understanding the technology. I will elaborate on this, on how you can find your way in the world of autonomous vehicles. So keep asking questions. I think I will end the poll now. So we have 11 questions, 73%, 73% somehow familiar, 18% familiar, and 9% not familiar. And we have 55% students and 45 professionals. So that's good. So we carry on with our presentation. I'll share the results with you, so you can have a look at our audience and who is here. And we stop sharing. So we have been talking about the concepts and opportunities on autonomous vehicles. And here we need to talk about safety assurance. So what are the sources of hazards in autonomous vehicles? The sources of hazards can be coming from the mechanical components of the car, from the electrical components, from hardware, from software, from sensors, from behavioral, for example, the human interaction with the car, fallback, and cyber. These are the key areas of hazards for autonomous vehicles. And many automakers are doing a lot of testing. Many car makers are doing a lot of software simulation to prove that their autonomous vehicles are safe. And you can see on the chart here that some are followers in this area, some are challengers, and some are leaders. And those leaders who have the most reliable safe operation. So let's talk about dynamics and control. It's great if you are going to develop a controller, or if you are going to control the car, to do the maneuvers, to have a good understanding of vehicle dynamics. And there is a lateral controller and longitudinal controller. The lateral controller mission is to control the turns going left and right, while the longitudinal controller mission is to control the throttle and the brake. So basically, when you drive a car, either you steer the car left and right, or you pedal to drive the car forward and brake to stop the car. Sometimes you do reverse as well, which is part of the longitudinal controller. So the steering, just to explain on a high level how a controller works, for the lateral controller, the steering, you get lateral dynamics, and these lateral dynamics are forces that are transferred to kinematics motion, which deliver yaw rate to the vehicle. And if you are on the longitudinal controller, you will do throttling, braking. This will result in longitudinal dynamics, which result in longitudinal forces, which result in motion, longitudinal kinematics, which will result in forward velocity. So angle and velocity is what control your vehicles. And the main control task to keep the vehicle on the defined path at the desired velocity. What you see on the left, on the right-hand side is Stanley. Stanley is the car that has won the DARPA challenge, and the DARPA challenge is a famous challenge that is being put by the U.S. Army about innovating and addressing key problems. And in one of the years, the challenge was to drive a vehicle to drive a vehicle autonomously on 160 kilometers area of terrain, and the vehicle that managed to do so is, I think, called Stanley. I think it was Stanford University. Moving on, to be able to work on the area of autonomous vehicles, you should do a lot of simulation. What is the advantage of simulation? Simulation helps us to simulate the environment. It helps us to make sure that we can adjust our controller to the controllers to the right parameters, to make sure that we understand different circumstances that the cars will face, and to be able to design our software. And in our course, we provide one controller software for the Carla simulator, and the Carla simulator is one of the key simulators that is being used for simulation of autonomous vehicle software. Now we need to talk about the ecosystem, and by the ecosystem, like the autonomous vehicles has grown to its own industry. So the regulators are interested. For example, the National Highway Safety and Standards Board, and you can see also different states. If we talk about the United States, you can see different states has passed either enacted legislation, or they have an executive order, or they have both. They have an enacted legislation associated with autonomous vehicles and executive order as well. So the world, wherever you are in the world, soon you should be having some kind of legislation for autonomous vehicles. So the ecosystem consists of regulators, consists of functioning original equipment manufacturers, functioning OEMs, functioning AV builds. They don't build the cars, but actually they run the car as a service. For example, Uber or Lyft. There are also some companies that provide AV stacks. This is hardware and software stacks. There are some companies that provide sensing, some companies that provide processing, some companies that provide mapping, connectivity, some companies that is focusing only on software algorithms, and maybe one of the questions was about software, some companies that provide model simulation testing and development tools or data handling. So to find your way in the world of autonomous vehicles, you should know the different players that work in the ecosystem, and maybe either as an entrepreneur or as a student, maybe you might join one of these companies. What about cybersecurity in autonomous vehicles? Of course, cybersecurity is an issue because those vehicles will be connected to the network and they can be impacted like any computer with viruses and malicious software. This is an ongoing area of research to try to protect our autonomous vehicles from any kind of malicious activity. So it's in its own specialization. Autonomous vehicle, its own specialization. Cybersecurity in autonomous vehicles, I think it's something that it has its own specialization, and you should be familiar with autonomous vehicle software. You are welcome. So there was a comment, thanks for addressing our questions. I say you are most welcome. So examples of functioning OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, you have, for example, Tesla, you have General Motors, Cruise, you have Ford Aurora, you have, of course, BMW, Bike, Audi, SAIC, the Chinese, also the Chinese companies are working diligently in this area, and they have their own autonomous vehicles pilot programs similar to the American companies. And what I have realized that some of these companies, either the Japanese automakers or the American automakers or the Chinese automakers, might have some alliances around the development of autonomous vehicles technology. Functioning AV builds mobility, and this is here you can see Apple. I don't know, was always some discussions that Apple, they have their own autonomous vehicles project. There is Waymo, there is Lyft, there is Uber, and there is Zoox. For example, you talk about the Zoox example, there is Didi, Cruise, Easy Mile. Those do not produce the cars, but actually they produce the autonomous vehicles technology and build on it and do the testing. So they build their own autonomous vehicles fleet. AV stacks, and with AV stacks, we talk about, for example, companies like Intel, companies like NXP, companies like NVIDIA. They are providing the Hitachi, Qualcomm, companies that are providing the hardware stack, the computation stack for autonomous vehicles. Sensing, the sensing world is very important for autonomous vehicles. You can have companies that have their own hardware, that have their own sensors, their own radars, their own lidars, and they are selling them for autonomous vehicles companies, or for original equipment manufacturers, or for mobility manufacturers, or the ones who are using the cars for their own use. So sensing is an important area also. For example, you might not need a lot of software knowledge to understand sensing as much as you need hardware knowledge. AV stacks, again, we talked about this AV stacks. Processing, some companies doing the processing, and we have given the example of NVIDIA, and there is Intel as well, ARM, and there is a conflict around the world around microchips and semiconductors, because the demand is growing in this area, and there are not enough raw materials to produce the necessary equipments to take autonomous vehicles for the markets. Mapping, many companies work in the area of mapping, such as civil maps, such as HERE, such as, and maybe you heard about these companies, Baidu, Carmera, and Civil. There are many companies. I think I have met one of the guys from Civil Maps, and he was in a very early stage developing their own mapping technology. Connectivity also as well, connectivity is important, and software algorithms, and this is dedicated and focused on. And for example, we talked about universities. Some universities are focused on autonomous vehicles software, and they are producing autonomous vehicles research, which can guide some startups for autonomous vehicle software. So software and algorithms as well. And here you can see Tata and Tata Elxsi. So Tata is famous. So maybe Tata is working also in developing software algorithms for autonomous vehicles. Model simulation and testing, there is ANSYS and many other players. Data handling, the area of data handling is a growing area because those autonomous vehicles produce so much data that you need your own data handling company to do this. Let us have a new bull here. Yes. Can we have a second bull before we continue?
Sure, yeah. I think there is a question that has come up from Jayesh, who is asking, what about the accuracy of autonomous vehicles, and also what are the precautions available in autonomous vehicles in suddenly critical situation? Feras, would you like to answer this? So he has asked, what about the accuracy of autonomous vehicles, and also what are the precautions available in autonomous vehicles in suddenly critical situation? If you could answer to that question, please.
Yes, of course. So let me read it, because I think it's always good to read. What about the accuracy of autonomous vehicles, and also what are the precautions available on autonomous vehicles in suddenly critical situation? So the accuracy, or let me say the safety, because any mistake will result in an incident, is being done through testing and simulation. And testing is being done either in a systematic way through systems engineering practices. Then the car is developed and modified to address different safety issues. Then moving to testing in a simulated environment, like on the computer. Then they take the car to be simulated in closed circuits. Then they take the car to be simulated in the road, on open areas around the road, so like Waymo and Cruise. And with that, they measure the number of disengagements, which means that the autonomous vehicle software had to disengage and the driver has to interfere. There was some accidents that happened during testing. However, it's growing, but there is a belief in the industry that in order to achieve 100% safe operation, we might need a fleet of 100 vehicles to be, and that should be tested for 400 years. So the testing and simulation is what is being done to address this issue. Is my presentation, is my screen visible?
Yes, Feras.
Yes, okay. So was that a good answer for what about the accuracy of autonomous vehicles, and also what are the precautions available in autonomous vehicles in suddenly critical situations?
Great, I think that was a great answer, Feras, and it was a very nice presentation here. We took a lot of value from this presentation, and I am sure learners will be looking forward to join the main program so that they can further their education on autonomous vehicles and understand what what are the opportunities and trends, and how this can help them in their career. So thank you for taking out time, Feras, again.
There are just 2 slides remaining.
Sure.
Can we have the polls result back?
Oh, I think actually the poll result I did not share. Now let me check if I can share.
How
Oh,
was
yeah.
your experience with this session? Awesome. As expected, thank you a lot. Are you interested in joining the course on e-mobility? Yes, that's 9 out of 9. That's great. So this is, we share the result with you. And so 3 more slides, if you allow me to.
Sure. Please go ahead, Feras.
So where innovation can happen in autonomous vehicles after we talked about the ecosystem. Level 5 autonomy needs a lot of people to be engaged, to bring new ideas, to bring new concepts for the development of this system. And it is a growing area of research, and you can see the lady here is reading while the car is taking the driving. Autonomous guided bus, that tram. So this is, I told that I'll talk about this in details later on. This is, I think, in a city in China, I think it's called Zhengzhou, and they have developed a bus that looks like a tram and follows a line, and this line can guide the bus journey, and the bus can stop if there was a passenger in front of it or if there was a car. So this was an autonomous, they call it a trackless train, because the train does not have a track. This area where you have this case where you have a bus or a tram that is driving in a mixed traffic road, that is driving with passengers, with cars, with other vehicles, it's a very interesting area for autonomous vehicle technology application, because if you can develop a safe operation using autonomous vehicles that is much better than drivers, this means that you can reduce a lot on the cost of infrastructure. So instead of building a track or dedicated infrastructure, you just build the line indications or road signs, and this will be sufficient for this will be sufficient for the development of for the operation of these vehicles. This is a very interesting area for autonomous vehicles research in public transport. So careers. To join the world of autonomous vehicles, maybe you would have the opportunity to join the big automakers, and they have their own websites and they have their own posts, and you can follow them, and maybe you can apply to the post that is available. Hopefully having a course on autonomous vehicles will help you to achieve this. And if you are an entrepreneur, you might think about building you might be thinking about building your own autonomous vehicles. Can be on the area of, even on a smaller scale, a micro mobility or a vehicle that is being used for example, for transport in small areas, or inside a mall, or inside a retail area. These areas, if you have the sufficient exposure and knowledge, you might have this. And of course, if you are in a country that have a high, if you are in a country that have automotive manufacturing, for example, Germany, there will be many opportunities for joining autonomous vehicle startups or starting your own. Again, I finished the presentation. The course Cobon is Cars Passion. Today, we have talked about the main components and concepts in AV. We talked about the opportunities in learning about these concepts, and we talked about the AV ecosystem. We talked about how you can join the AV industry, and we talked about how one company like Zoox managed to enter the market and to be acquired. So with that, I end my presentation. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask. Can we have about the PowerPoint for further reference? Yes, you can. And I will put it on YouTube. I hope we have recorded this.
Yes, Feras, we have recorded this and we'll be sharing it with you so that you can, put it on YouTube as well.
Yes.
Great. So thank you, Feras, and that was a lovely presentation. And we are going to see you again tomorrow at the same time.
Yes.
And we will be talking about e-mobility from you, coming up from your presentation. So see you tomorrow then, Feras, and everyone. I'm hoping that we will see you tomorrow.
Yes. So see you tomorrow. So
Great.
don't
Thank
forget
you.
to share. You are welcome. Don't forget to share the presentation with me.
Sure.
Thank you and take care for now. Thank you, guys.